Dennis Mitchell. He's wrote a story
I
here.
wrote a book.
So let's no, we appreciate it too. We're just
Sure.
I have two questions. Do you think Lars Anderson was a better singles wrestler than a tag team? I don't know that I've seen Lars Anderson enough to even, because I've seen some of the stuff he did from Hawaii and I wasn't that impressed. But what do you think, Rodney?
Lars was good as a single too because in an attack team he was quite good either way. I remember when he was in Atlanta, he actually worked with Thunderbolt Patterson, just one on one, and it was really good. And the way I just watched an interview with Lars Anderson just yesterday, and the man can talk. The man can talk, and he can sell the ticket. That's the main thing.
What
And
about
so
you,
yeah,
Jack?
I think either a tag team or a single, either one.
Well, my personal experience with Lars was just seeing him in singles matches. I was around when they led up to the big Omni show. Where Ole turned on Dusty, and then he and Lars, had that angle set up from there. So I hadn't seen a whole lot of Lars. I thought he was just about as good as anybody else, and from what I understood, he's a pretty good booker. So
Yeah, because
he
he
lasted.
booked Hawaii for a long time.
Yeah, sure did.
Let's see what else he had to say. He said, "Do you see he could have been NWA World Heavyweight Champion?" I don't know. I don't know if he could have been or not. What do y'all think? Could he have been World Heavyweight Champion?
Bob?
I think. Yeah. I think they're talking about. I think he's still
Lars Anderson. Yeah. Lars had the ability. He could, and he had the wrestling ability, and most of all, he had the talk ability.
Yeah.
He was able to talk on the mic. So yeah, I think he could have been if that's the direction that they were going to go in.
When Bob Armstrong was a bad guy, was any discussions in my fantasy match similar between Bob and Hank Williams Jr. being the good guy, similar between Jerry and Andy Kaufman? I doubt very seriously that would have happened. I think it would have drawn good money in Southeast year 1982-83 time frame. Anyone ever meet Hank Williams Jr.? We didn't meet Hank Williams Jr., but man, he would go when they had these little things. Was it called Wrestle Fest or something? And they brought Hank Williams Jr. to Mid-South Wrestling. He didn't stay in his little bus. He'd stay right there with the wrestlers, and I had a good time with them the whole night. Jerry Reed, completely different story.
Yeah, he came back in the mid '80s. He was still living in Coleman, and he came out to several shows that I was on. I got to meet him then. Really nice guy. He was a real fan. I think that's my best memory of Hank Jr.
David Lawson, what made Ronnie and the boys go from wrestling business to Cole Brothers Circus? I think
Chris.
It was CM.
Exactly right. CM. They did it. Yep.
CM got us involved in the circus business. The first circus that we ever promoted was a circus called L.E. Barnes Circus. It was run by it was Hoover, wasn't it? I can't believe it. I can't remember. But he was the one. He was a tiger tamer, and he was the one that was running the circus. And CM called and said, "Hey, you want to promote a circus?" Well, yeah. What's the difference between circus and wrestling? So we did that for 14 years. So. All right, I am trying to get down to these other questions. I will. A dream match: Wahoo McDaniel versus John Cena. Wahoo McDaniel's going to win that one. Don't y'all agree?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think John Cena could have held his own with Wahoo McDaniels. Now, I don't even know if he could have held his own when he was 50 years old, Wahoo McDaniel and John Cena. So, thank you, Daniel. That would be it'd be very interesting to see some of those guys matched up today. Has said Rodney Houston Hayes said, "Who is Rodney West? Ron West kid?" Yes.
Yes.
Well,
right now, Randy, are you Michael Hayes' son?
Well, I am also.
I'm just messing.
I am also one of the sons of Ron West, so my name is Brett.
I always thought your name was Pro Wrestling.
It is. It's Pro Wrestling Inside and Out. It's right there. That's my name. Somebody asked me the one time, says, "Well, what's your name?" I said, "Pro Wrestling Inside and Out." That's my name. I've legally changed it to Pro Wrestling Inside and Out now. Dennis asks us another guy, Jack, I'm glad you're the good guy. Also, Rodney Barrett, what's your Dad, what would your dad's reaction be? Bob Roop trying to steal Knoxville from Ron Fuller. I don't know that we even talked about it in 1979.
No, Dad, he understood. I mean, I guess he understood their ways. He was never down on them. He never talked bad of them. He said it was a terrible mistake because they'll never, as far as he was concerned, probably never work for another organized territory again. And many of them didn't for a very long time after that. But as far as him thinking bad of Bob Roop or anybody, I don't think he did.
Greg said he'd love to see a Lars and Brock Lesnar match. I think I give Brock Lesnar.
I'm gonna give Brock on
that. I think Brock would take Lars. I just have a feeling there ain't too many people who can take Brock Lesnar.
I'd give up on the way to the ring.
This is true. That's I think I'm just going to turn back around. I'll take the 10 count and be done with it.
The City Auditorium opening match: David Von Erich to face Bill White in our first match. Second match: Dino Bravo against Don Kent. Stan Hansen takes on Jerry Stubbs, who is substituting for Don Kernoodle. We're not sure what happened to Don, but he pulled a no-show on him, I think. Yes, and Jerry Stubbs was there. Tag team match: Bob Armstrong and Tommy Rich versus Randy Savage and Sergeant Jacques Goulet. The Executioner was supposed to be there. Randy Savage takes his place. Then the big one: Abdullah the Butcher versus Tony Atlas. That had to be a good one. And then it was a no contest match. It ended up with the Sheik and Dusty Rhodes. And in the main event, lights out brass nuts match: Dick Slater against Ole Anderson. And what a show that had to be. Dick Slater and Ole Anderson, the main event. That was on October the 21st, 1977, Atlanta City Auditorium. And I wished I'd have been there. We didn't get to see that one. I would have loved to see that match.
And then on October 28, 1977, at the Atlanta Municipal Auditorium. Now, this Richard Blood that was on this show, was this still Ricky Steamboat?
It's possible. It's possible.
I believe so.
Because Tito Santana also wrestled as Richard.
Yeah, Tito Santana also did. So we had in that one we had the Richard Blood versus David Von Erich. Again, Randy Savage was supposed to be there, but Richard Blood took his place. Then we had Bill White against Tommy Rich in the second match. Don Kent was supposed to be there. Bill White took his place. Stan Hansen versus Dino Bravo. Bob Armstrong versus Sergeant Jacques Goulet. And I believe at about this time, that's when Bob and Sergeant Jacques Goulet was battling over the TV title. They went through several time limit draws on TV, and I think that was what they were building up to. Then we had Tony Atlas versus the Executioner, and for the World Tag Team Championship, Ole and Gene Anderson versus Bill Watts and Dusty Rhodes. And in a no time limit, no disqualification match, is Pac Song against Mr. Wrestling 2.
This would have been about that time, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that would have been right about that time. That's right.
It's you, I'm after, Rock Hunter, and I won't stop till I'll wipe you out. That's Mr. Wrestling 2 to Rock Hunter. Oh, by the way, I wanted to show this picture. Here is Stan Hansen against Jerry Stubbs on television. I believe he's just getting the lariat right there.
He's getting the lariat. Yeah.
I believe Jerry Stubbs.
What most everybody looked like getting that lariat.
As you see, he's off the ground at them. He hit Buck Brannigan so hard one time he knocked his mask off. He was in there asking games.
That was something.
Knocked him right out of his mask.
That was in Gainesville, Georgia. The old Jim of 36 elbowed him across the back of the head, and when he did, his mask just went right straight off, right to the mat, and everybody was laughing.
Yeah, they were. Hey, here's another one.
Laughing. The referee was laughing. Everybody's laughing.
Here's Randy Savage against Jerry Stubbs. And it looks like he's fixing to give him the big splash right there. I thought I'd go ahead and show that photograph while I was thinking about it. All right, what was the next week's card there, Rodney?
Well, the next week's card was, and that was on November the 4th at the Atlanta City Auditorium, Sergeant Jacques Goulet against Richard Blood, Stan Hansen against Big Bill Dromo. It was Bob Armstrong against Don Kent, Tommy Rich against Abdul the Butcher with Rock Hunter, Tony Atlas versus Pac Song with Rock Hunter, and then we had the World Tag Team title match. Ole and Gene Anderson against Dusty Rhodes and Dick Slater. Special guest referee was Pat O'Connor for that one. And that was on November the 4th, 1977.
That I would have loved to go back to these cards, wouldn't y'all?
I would give anything to see these matches. I'll tell you right now.
I'm telling you, I got to go to the Atlanta City Auditorium a couple of times. That was probably the greatest atmosphere for professional wrestling that I ever saw. I mean, just that smoke-filled arena. People were just rabid fans, and the wrestling was some of the best you'd find anywhere in the world at that time.
Yeah, exactly. It was. You were telling the story. We had did a post that came out today, and you were telling the story about the Tommy Rich and Bobby Heenan. Tell us a little bit about that. More about that. What happened in that whole scenario?
Well, they had advertised. It was supposed to be Terry Funk against Tommy Rich, and I specifically went because I'd never seen Terry Funk live before, and I always wanted to. And they announced that Terry wasn't coming, that they were instead going to have a cage match, loser leave town for Tommy against Bobby Heenan. And I was a little disappointed at first until that match. That was probably one of the best matches I ever saw. Bobby Heenan, most people, you've heard him doing commentary, you saw him as a manager, but if you never saw him wrestle, you really missed something, because that guy was in a league all his own. I'd never seen anybody, with the exception of Ricky Morton, that could sell the way Bobby Heenan could sell. And I mean, Tommy, I said this in the post, Tommy Rich was over like dynamite in Georgia at the time, but he walked out of that cage like Superman. I mean, Bobby Heenan put him over from bell to bell. And it was tremendous. I don't think I've ever seen anybody get that much color in my life either. Oh my Lord, that was something.
It was all over Tommy. So.
Oh man, yeah, that's one of the few times Tommy didn't have to do nothing to be covered in blood. So, but that was, Heenan was leaving the territory. I think it was kind of short notice. If I'm not mistaken, I think that was when he might have been going somewhere else, but it wasn't too long before he showed up with WWE or WWF at the time. So, but man, it was great. I loved it.
Sir, he put on a great skin. Tyrone said, guys, when Paul North was in Georgia, he was super over. Do you have the reason why he left? I felt in my heart they could have built the promotion around him. I think was he still there in 1983, Rodney, when we left? I won't say we left.
Yeah, he was still there. He was still there. Still there. I believe he went right straight from Georgia. Did he not go to work for Vince at that point?
Didn't they do the Black Saturday? Wasn't that about the time they did the Black Saturday? And
I think he was already gone by that time.
Yeah, he was already there?
I think he was already gone by that time.
David said Cena couldn't survive one Wahoo. This is true.
Yeah, I was watching the match with Wahoo this past weekend, and they were talking about Wahoo, the hardest chops in the business, is what they call.
There's no doubt he did have a chop.
And when Wahoo used to come around us, me and Brent would run.
Yeah. He's a great guy, but man, just grabbing hold of you hurt.
Yeah, his rings, watches and bracelets tore our ears.
He was
a great guy. Flowered ear.
David said thoughts on Chief Joe Lightfoot, Solomon, Georgia, and in Florida. Rodney, would you like to tell the story of Chief Joe Lightfoot, Knoxville?
Georgia Championship Wrestling was promoted up in Knoxville, and Joe Lightfoot was coming to the ring, and I think was dead referee. I believe he was.
Yeah, I think he was.
And so I think it was me. I'm standing there getting ready to pick up the jackets and take them back to the table. And Joe Lightfoot comes up to the top. He jumps up on the ring apron, grabs onto the top rope, and jumps. And when he jumps, he don't quite clear the top rope. He falls flat on his face, and those feathers are going every way. And so he thought that I had grabbed a hold of his leg as he jumped off the rope and accused me of tripping. Dad said it looked like a dead turkey flying over the place.
I was ringing the bell. I was timekeeper that night. I mean, I was rolling as well. Because the funny part was not him falling over it. Is he blaming people for
Blaming
that?
everybody else. He just didn't clear the top rope.
By the way,
Those feathers were everywhere.
Does anybody know if Chief Joe Lightfoot is with us still? I mean, is he still alive or?
No idea. I haven't heard anything from him in years.
What are you going to try to do? You going to ask him to jump over the top rope?
Yeah, we'll see if he'll go to Rome, Georgia, and jump over the top rope there.
Jump over the top rope.
Come on out.
We ask him every night, are you going to jump over the top rope again tonight?
Now, we also was very mean to Michael Hayes as well, because we tell him, make sure you don't break somebody's knees tonight in your drop kick.
That's right.
Very mean, right. Michael Hayes. We terrorized Michael Hayes.
We were equally vicious to everybody.